Hey everyone, welcome back to 3D6 Down the Line. After approximately about a year, we have our latest Tack-on FX. So this particular Tack-on FX, appends episode 90, which is the last episode that we recorded. The AV Club presently has just cleared out the Beastmen compound of the undead that Nefret basically upended. That whole small ecosystem, and they are preparing to delve southwards into the fungal caverns. The night prior to determining that, they actually spent the night in the Debouche, and we are saying that at that night they did some spell research and transcriptions, but in addition, they also decided to finally dive into all of the books that were found in the Secret Library of Thoth. We've already done one where they looked into the books that were found in the Library of Thoth, but the Secret Library was also rated. So they've got a number of books there as well. And there are a smattering of other books that we haven't actually detailed. So we're going to go over them now. It's basically going to be story time with John. But if anyone wants to, if either any of you three want to jump in, and the three that we have, by the way, are David, Matt, and Ted.
Hello, everyone.
Mike is dead to us.
Hi.
The if you want to jump in and ask questions or theorize or whatever, feel free. But basically, I'm just going to be relaying this information. My players here will obviously get like hard copy, reference points for all of these things. But there is a thing called copyright, so I cannot actually post those to the audience. So this is the best way to sort of relay what these texts are. I'm sorry, it is just sort of an audio read along, but I can't post these visually. That would be a major violation. We don't want to do that. That said, if you want your hard copies of all the wonderful books that were written by Richard Barton for the Halls of Arden Vul, just the books themselves are worth the price of the product. It is
very true.
Yeah, I can't express enough how much the what everyone balks at, which is the price of the product, the Halls of Arden Vul, the amount of gaming you're getting out of it, as witnessed by us, far exceeds the cost. In fact, I should say in general that every RPG you pay for, you're probably underpaying for it. Yes. So if I could just stand on the soapbox for a minute, you should quit your whining about how much RPGs pay.
Yes. Yes. Let me hear. Can we make this the only topic of tonight's session? Is just soapboxing about pedants. Never mind. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
I'll say one more thing. Sorry, John. I highly recommend, because of John's dulcet tones, that while experiencing this bedtime story, put on a rain sound machine or something a little soothing and really get into the ASMR of it.
Yeah. We had some recent comments about how people were actually like going to sleep to
baby.
And like that's kind of a backhanded compliment. I mean, it's like, I guess that's cool.
But I do that during the session sometimes. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, John, you do that through a smooth voice. I do it through sheer exhaustion. I just pester them until they pass out.
Right, exactly. Okay, so let's go through these, shall we? So
where we start?
I'll go through like what the titles are. So what we found in the Secret Library of Thoth is a tome, books, tomes, folios, quires. There's a whole bunch of different formats, but one's called the Ancient Ones. One's called the Canticle of Arcane Knowledge. One is a complete decoding of the Old One's glyphs. It's pretty obvious what that one is. The Deeds of Tarmus, which we've already sort of explained last session. The Divine Power is a manifestation of the collective will. The First History of the Order of Thoth and Arden Vul. Great Villains of Arkantos, Part 5, Priscus the Traitor. The Litany of Light, which we already did actually go through at the time, and Pohl's Treatise on Scrying. You all know that was the one magical book. And the last one that I kind of
look at that one.
The one that I wanted to save till last is actually one from prior, but is much more detailed. It's the 12 Labors of Arden. They play a central role in the campaign in general and in the history of the world and people's collective mythology about the past. Because Arden is so regaled, but it's a lot, you know what I mean. And it's one of those things where my players always have access to the 12 labors. They've got it up on the Miro board, but again, I can't actually just post that for the audience to see. But it is a really cool set of Herculean tasks in the Herculean mode, I should say. So if we have time, we'll do that at the end. Okay, so
for dessert, can we do 74 ways of opening the lotus?
We did that one before.
I think we should do it again.
But you guys did that in private, so
should I bring up Photoshop for some live illustration? I can. Ooh, now that's Attack on FX. Who wants some live drawing?
That is the 72nd way, is to do it again.
Ooh.
Okay, so first one, the Ancient Ones. Let's head over to books here. All right. The Ancient Ones. Okay, so this is a codex written in Mithric. It's by a person named Laelius the Praetor. And Laelius the Praetor was one of the chief lieutenants of the Archon at the time, Irene Bellatrix. This is around 1070. All right, so this is at the height of the Archontian colonization of Arden Vul. All right, so right away, you're kind of talking about a secular tome, right? This is, a lieutenant to the Archon. Describes the mysterious ancient beings known to the Archontians as, quote, the survivors of the old war, but self-described as Rudishva, and also as the Beacon's children. And the beacon is capitalized. The overview describes the Ancient Ones as immortal, tall and skinny, with slightly demonic visage. That's the way that the Archontians put it. Long, slender fingers, and a marvelous ability to create and use magical items. But despite this obvious affinity for magic items, they do not appear to cast spells at all, at least any that are known to the Order of Thoth at the time. They eat, but sparingly, and prefer vegetarian fare. Some have taken up residence with the Archontians and have offered their skills. They claim not to be able to manipulate the obsidian gates. That's like a key point that they kind of put out. Laelius describes each of these survivors in turn. So there was basically they're relating that there was Rudishva there whenever they came, right? And then there was a few survivors that have actually incorporated into Archontian society and taught them things, okay? So these are the Rudishva that actually assimilated into Archontian society underground. Kralakaras. So all of the ones that I'm listing here appear to be Archontianized or Latinized, I guess is the way we would put it, versions of what their true Rudishva names probably were. So be aware, okay? I will just kind of point out really obviously to you that being aware of that is important for recognition. Okay.
John, can I insert a quick comment as a dog ear? Obsidian gates, the same the goldenrod is affiliated with?
Yes.
Okay. Just saying it out loud for the viewers. Yes. All right.
So it's sort of like you get the impression from reading it that the Archontians were not able to penetrate the obsidian gates, and neither were the Rudishva. That's what they were saying. Okay. So the survivors, Kralakaras, okay, starting with a C. Always grinning, always attempting jokes, appears to be an entertainer, but a highly disciplined and highly organized one. All right. Salorikus, Salorikus, was a gifted surgeon, learned in anatomy and capable of the most impressive medical procedures, highly valued by the Archon for his excellent service. All right. Ravatorus, Ravatorus, was a sage of sorts with deep knowledge of subterranean and piscine life forms, fish life forms, has offered assistance in identifying rare creatures and helping determine their abilities. Melacorius, Melacorius, was a great general of the Rudishva, rarely seen by the Archontians, only visiting on occasion from an unknown redoubt hidden by sorcery. He's polite, educated, fluent in Archontian, with immense charisma. So he was a military general. Isocrates, basically the way it sounds, was the companion of Melacorius, the general. Silent, brooding, and unpleasant. Apparently a soldier, for he always comes with a large sword. And lastly was Nacalorus, Nacalorus, humble, self-abasing, with few skills save language. He has aided the temples in reaching a spoken form of Rudishva. Temples is pluralized there. apparently a servant to the greater lords. Okay?
John, Isocrates spelled the same way as Isocritus?
No.
No.
It is different,
Okay,
yeah.
just
Isocritus
to
is like with a US, but this ends with an ES.
Us, not is. Okay.
Yeah.
Could the large sword be Oculus, y'all? Who knows? Anyway, continuing.
Okay, so that's the ancient ones. Any questions about that off the top of your head? No?
Well, I'm just wondering. I'm looking at my notes here, trying to find when we found this first spaceship, and we were able to read the names of some of the Rhodesians. Anybody remember what episode that was?
It would have been
18?
in the late teens or early 20s. Late teens, probably.
Here we go. So let's see.
While you're looking, I did find a note that the Trolls Varamunai were servants of the Rhodesians as well.
Yeah. All right. So we've got Trivlock, Baltaj Kop, Janaka. These don't sound like the same names at all, even Arcantianized. Okay. We thought they were prisoners anyway, or something like that. All right.
Okay.
Interesting. Great.
All right. Moving on. We have the Canticle of Arcane Knowledge. So this is a codex as well in Mithric. It's black with leather bindings. So this was an important text. This is very important because it was written by one of the great Swordians, Priscus Pulcher. Okay.
Ooh.
That outlines his theories of magic. All right. So the author of this work is actually Priscus Pulcher. Remember that this person's name is villainized across the empire to this day. So you can understand, like when you see this and who wrote it, you can understand immediately why this was hidden in the Secret Library of Thoth for only the most, elite eyes to gaze upon it. Chief among these theories of magic is the concept that the talent for magic is a spark equally distributed throughout the population. The text was widely condemned and burned in its day. It was anathema to the Thothites in the temples, right? That's why the Civil War happened. As a result, few copies remain. While the principles Priscus espoused are now normative, because the Swordians won the Civil War, the revelation that Priscus Pulcher, usually seen as a villain, espoused these ideas would cause a minor shock throughout the empire. Right, so he wrote this work, and he comes across as a very kind of genuine person. He was very egalitarian, thought that the spark of magic was, was naturally selective in amongst humankind in general, and there's nothing that you read in the Canticle that makes you think that he should have been villainized, basically, right? All right.
Next. That's the primary piece of useful arcane knowledge is that bit? There's not like a, how to turn a goblin into a wizard instructions or something?
It's just the theories of magic. It's more about explaining like his thought process. It's his words on paper, and that's very, very rarely seen. Very few copies of this because they were basically banned and burned during the time. Right.
Is there? Sorry.
Go ahead.
It's kind of a question of the group. I don't think John can answer. We certainly know that there are many true names of Thoth, right? Is there any other precedent? I'm thinking about this because of the last book, but is there any other precedent that we know of characters who bear different names for different cultures? Right? You mentioned like a Latinization of the names prior, and it just got me kind of wondering if. I don't know. That's it. John, you don't have to answer that. I'm just curious if anyone else remembered. I don't want to spoil it, but yeah.
The only sort of like related to that would be like the Sunscarred Knights are obviously going under pseudonyms.
Okay. So there's not like a precedent in other books that we see of like generational pseudonym or like, a secret name, like a very like, Earthsea-esque sort of concept.
Yeah. Well, there's one that would be Toristus, right? So Toristus was one. He was a person, and he was and he was one of the companions. Like he was like the cleric companion in Arden Vul's adventuring party, right? But because he was so revered, because of his association with Arden Vul, that became the title of the Pope of the Temple of Thoth, right? So
makes sense.
Doesn't really count.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
No, it makes perfect sense. It's good. Thank you.
Okay. Next one is a complete decoding of the Old One's glyphs. So this was written by our Narcontian named Herodian Tiro. What? How do you say like a neophyte Tiro or Tyro? Like a young person.
I do not know.
I think it's Tiro.
I always said Tyro, but I don't know if that's correct.
Okay, so what you find out from reading it is that he was actually a star pupil of the famed Laelius the Praetor, who wrote the Ancient Ones. Okay, and he was called Tyro because of his youth, but he was abnormally, gifted. Anyways, it's a codex. It is made of unbound vellum quires, and it's 200 folios that assembles pictures. This is really good for you, of every known Rudishva glyph, and provides a short sentence or two of Mithric translation and explanation of what those glyphs mean.
Sweet.
Whoa.
Amazing.
And so looking at it, do we recognize some of the glyphs we saw in the spaceship that we examined that Mort could read briefly?
You sure do.
They look familiar. Okay, so we have some understanding of what we're looking at here. That's great.
Yes. So with the thorough studying of this, we could just basically say that you can't speak Rudishvan, but you could translate. I would say like any sort of encounter with a set of glyphs in a given location, you would take it like a turn to sort of reference this work and then be able to translate it, right? I would say though that if in order for that utility, you would have to carry the book on you, like it would have to be a reference work.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So just kind of
and this is like a one slot kind of deal.
A one slot.
We need
exactly. Yeah.
See, this is why, guys, like we need more retainers because we have a librarian, we have an accountant.
I have a thought about that, right? Like, strange as it may sound, in the same way that scroll cases function essentially as an all-encompassing scroll vessel, I think an interesting magical item to construct would be a tome of all, like some sort of book that holds all books, right? So that like I don't know how that would function cost-wise, but it'd be very cool to have like a portable library as a magic item, just so like this is a thing that we have with us on hand.
It would be called the
especially in a game like this
of Wiki.
Yes, the Wiki book.
The Wiki book.
I love it. One other, John, are we at a good stopping place before?
I just want to mention that because this author was the pupil of Laelius the Praetor, who wrote the Ancient Ones. You see that it was obviously like an Archontian work, like an incredible amount of work went into translating these glyphs. So it is likely, looking at the list of the Rudishvans that were helping and advising the Archontians, the Rudishvans, and remember the word was survivors. It's a key thing, and they were also known as the Beacon's children. That it is likely that it was Nacalorus who was probably dealing with this young Tiro. He was the one that was few skills save language, right? Was sort of the thing. Go ahead.
Survivors makes a lot of sense because we speculated that first ship we found had crashed. That's why it was buried the way it was, and so on. So if these were the survivors of that crash, presumably the prison keepers, if that was a ship full of prisoners, something like that. But why the Beacons? What was it called? Beacon children.
I'm glad we brought Beacon back up because I was going to rewind. I'll try to be on top of this moving forward, just to share what we have in our notes. Thanks to Matt, Beacon arrives a couple times. In our second session, we learned the Beacon shall be revealed to those who bring a midday life to the sun, the moon, and the stars.
Ooh.
That's on that obelisk.
And it was the obelisk. That was the first thing. I think Beacon is a proper name, which is why I asked about names. I could be wrong, but like I was trying to figure out what's the Beacon? It's capitalized. It's either a location or a person, right? So if hypothetically Beacon's a person, what does that mean? So references to the quote 12, which loops back into what we're learning now, right? And notable, the force and depth of the carving on the Ankh and the Beacon engraving. So that Ankh we had. The next, I want to be really quick if I can. The next mention of beacon is the tablet of the beacon from Isocritus's book in the non-hidden library, which is a 12 by 9 oval durable panel, 2 rods extending from the surface. I'm just saying it to put it on camera, right? And then, of course, we're now learning both of the beacon's children and all of these names and hearing about it again in this codex. It would appear the beacon is an important thing to discern the nature of. I'm just saying it. All right.
Is there a name of Thoth that is beacon-like? Like, you've got the giver of life and the thrice linguist and that kind of thing. Is there a... Because we've speculated that Thoth is, in fact, a Rhodesian. And David's camera's freaking out. There we go. We don't know all the names of Thoth yet, but I wonder if there's a beacon-related one. Like
Font of Magic, Giver of Words, Thrice-born Linguist, Light of Comprehension, Giver of Life.
So go ahead, David.
Again, scattershot. I don't know, but just putting it on the page. The beacon could be the name of Thoth. It could be a location. It could be an event. The beacon could be the crashing of the alien ship, right? A great light in the stars, right? Et cetera, et cetera. I'm just trying to think of like what a proper name would sort of correlate to, just to get that in our minds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So don't forget. So you did find that piece by in Isocritus about the tablet of the beacon. The description of it certainly sounds like alien tech, right? And in addition, in the secret library, we can also go over this again tonight if we want. It were those clues to the locations of the remaining regalia. One which was called the tablet. It was in a folio in red ink that said, and it was a quote in the folio: "The tablet is the property of the Archon, and not that of the high priests of Thoth, Set, or Horus. Ensure that it remains safely in the hands of the civil authorities, ideally in my praetorion to the west of the chasm floor. Signed, Marius." Okay.
So perhaps, sorry, go ahead, John.
I'm done.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to belabor it, but the 12 children and the regalia might all be some version of aliens, and their alien tech being interpreted as sort of like through the lens of contemporary magic or technology, right? And I don't know if the obsidian gates relate, but since they're mentioned in the same sentence, the golden rod, the fact that 2 major civilizations tried to get into the obsidian gates could correlate to all of this, right? Like, this becomes a really big puzzle piece, I think, to, I mean, this is the J.J. Abrams magic box. Like, what the hell's behind the obsidian gates? And why are they obsidian? Why are they obsidian? You know what I mean? Like, is that because they were burnt from heat, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. That's a good point to bring up, the mystery of the obsidian gates, and related to what you've recently found in the Goblin Halls. Remember, in the Judgment Hall, were
additional obsidian gates.
They were obsidian gates. I don't know if I said this aloud. I don't think I did, but I should make clear that those gates, even though they have that kind of weird keying thing that you think the golden disc probably fit on there or something like that, those gates are made by Archontians. They are of Archontian make. They're made of obsidian.
Right.
Okay. They are very tall and they're very big, but from every indication that you've been reading now is that these obsidian gates are some sort of impervious barrier that no known sentient being has been able to cross to get through. And the ones that you saw in the Goblin Hall, though obsidian, though large, though with a strange way of opening, are Archontian made. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Lowercase obsidian gates.
Lowercase. And John, just to clarify, I can't remember the details of which you mentioned there was a correlation between the goldenrod and the obsidian gates at some point. Correct?
We got that from Lady Alexia.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. That was a rumor.
I got the impression that it was a rumor that was one of 2 keys to the gate, right? And we speculated it was like a handle or something like that. Yeah. Oh, of 6. Okay, so discs. Well, and again, the gosh. Okay, I feel bad for going long. The Codex from Isocritus has mentioned both rods and discs. There you have it, right? Like, I don't, but again, maybe that's not the same obsidian gate, but
Ted or Mort had made the had asked the question actually about the gates, if the goblin gates, the ones in the goblin halls, if the rod would fit into the actually, I guess it wouldn't because there is a rod protruding from the door, and then you're talking about the rod. But regardless,
trying to work out if the rod did something. Yes.
Yeah, and I basically said no.
Right.
Okay, so then there's the Deeds of Tarmus. We went over this last time. That is regarding a person. The scrap just says the great fungal explorer Lord Tarmus chose to abandon his kith and kin and establish his home and ultimate resting place on a high promontory amid the mushrooms that he loved.
Right. Oh, interesting.
So
that was from last time.
Yeah. We just found.
Yep.
This Deeds of Tarmus is longer.
No, this is the same thing. I'm just repeating it for everyone's sake.
Because we found two separate Tarmus things.
Yeah, well, yeah, you did, but it's the same. It's in the book, you know what I mean? It's like, there's a couple places where you can find
Everybody had one. It was a big seller.
So the scrap of vellum are the essential bits that the Deeds of Tarmus had.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Let's move on to the divine power is a manifestation of the collective will. That sounds something right up David's alley.
I was gonna say, baby, hey.
Okay, so this is by an author that actually goes by, and this is like their name, what they put in the name. They call themselves the Unknown Areopagite. So that's Areopagite, and it's just like that's the name of the person, the Unknown Areopagite. It's in Mithric and it's a codex. It's made of crumbling ash boards, so it's very, very fragile, but hard. So this is a radical theological text, thus why it was stuffed in the secret library, deemed heretical and suppressed on 4 separate occasions over a span of 600 years. In it, the unknown theologian argues that there are no gods. Divine power is nothing more than a projection of the collective willpower of like-minded ordinary people. Heresy. According to this theory...
Sounds like Upior's belief.
According to this theory, spells are concrete manifestations of that collective willpower. For obvious reasons, the temples oppose this teaching, and the text is now obscure. Okay, so it's very much a secular take on spellcasting and where magic comes from. We should take note here that we've mentioned a couple of times throughout, but in this world, in Rick's world of Magai, at least in the Arcantian Empire, there's a conflation of arcane and divine magic together, right? Like especially in the Church of Thoth, there is a worship and what do you call it? A holding up of arcane magic as a holy thing, right? So. Yeah. This kind of
he's only half right. There's real magic, but Thoth is obviously a Radishvan superpower of some kind. There's no gods. There's just aliens.
So you say.
Also, Areopagite is a reference to the Athenian counselors to the king, or like the ruling council or whatever. So this guy's
okay, that's cool.
Senator or
unknown member of like an inner circle. Yeah, the Areopagus were the court in ancient Athens.
Cool.
John, was there any indication of what was contemporary to this author, or
do we know when it was written?
What was going on when this book was written? Is there any way to tell? If I look at the inside cover page, does it have a publication date?
Printing.
Oh, like when it was done?
Penguin Books.
Yeah. Divine Power. Hold on.
Actually,
it's the first edition.
That's a good question. Also, it's maybe a good question to ask of all of these books. If it is noted,
yeah, some of them are. Some of them aren't.
You can kind of piece together some of them, yeah. But,
yeah, this one isn't, but it is written in Mithric, so you would assume that it was written during the Arcantian, the height of Arcantian power.
Cool.
In Arden Vul.
I'm going to go tuck that kid in, and I'll come back for more stories. And just
sure.
All right.
Okay. Next up, I'm going to skip ahead to the Great Villains of Arcantos, Part 5.
Part 5.
This is Part 5.
That says more about Arcantians than anything right there.
So this is Part 5 of a series. This one focuses on a single person, Priscus the Traitor. Okay. This was written by a person named Yang of Narcelion, Y-E-N-G of Narcelion. Let's see. It's a codex, blue horsehide with blue horsehide bindings. It's actually written in modern Arcantian. Okay. which has been around for a long time, to be fair. So it's not like it just happened to pop up in the Secret Library out of nowhere. A colorful work appearing more than a decade after the last installment. This text offers a fairly simplistic ad hominem attack against Priscus Pulcher, here described as a foul sorcerer who betrayed the Emperor's personal trust. This falls directly in line with all the stories that you've heard about Priscus Pulcher. The picture painted of Priscus is of a cartoon villain with hunchback, warts, fetid breath, and a morbid fascination with death. According to the text, Priscus intended the destruction of the empire from the start and used his evil sorcery to bewitch noble Arcontians before turning them against each other. In Yang's telling, Priscus is abetted by a wretched crone named Isadora, Isadora.
Wait,
who is
Priscus
both
is what? By
abetted.
abetted? Helped.
Abetted,
Okay.
yeah. Aided. Priscus is aided by a wretched crone named Isadora, who is both his lover and follower. The text culminates in an epic battle at Arden Vul, in which the evil Priscus is slain, Isadora vanishes in a puff of smoke, and much of the city is leveled. Yang concludes with some hortatory passages, I don't even know what that word means, warning readers to be on the alert for sons of evil, quote, who seek to emulate or venerate the evil Priscus. Despite the fact that Yang's account is almost entirely fictitious, it's fairly obvious to you, and laden with the worst sort of stereotypical tropes, this was by far his most successful work and has shaped most modern Arcontians' general knowledge of Priscus and the War of Swordians and Theosos. Sages and literary scholars are confident that this work is by a later continuator of the Yang series. So they actually, like most people think that this was actually not written by Yang, but in Yang's voice, who wrote the previous volumes of the Great Villains of Arcontos. Okay.
Now, sometimes when reading ancient texts, particularly where things get colorful, even when translated, there's a ring of truth to certain parts. There's, and not to get into great detail here, but there's parts of the Bible where they can, by reading the ancient Aramaic, they can say that's copied or that's playing off of something else. But this part right here doesn't sound like the author's hand. This is probably original text that he's copying.
Sure.
The part about the city being leveled, does it have any ring of truth to it?
It does, yeah. That sort of aligns with all the historical accounts that you've sort of seen or heard anecdotally throughout the years, given your limited experience as a goblin, of course. But I would say that it does a good job of emulating Yang's voice, but it's fairly obvious because of how fictitious the account obviously is that it was obviously written by a theosoph, like a dyed in the wool theosoph, right? Like someone who was really religious, had a real axe to grind against Priscus Pulcher. For a fact that all the depictions you've seen of Priscus Pulcher that you've identified as such always has him as a generally handsome man. There's no hunchback and warts and all that, like the cartoon villain. So you should take into account the fact that, in addition, his lover and follower Isadora was described as a wretched crone. Probably not true either, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But the part about their epic battle leveling the city, it doesn't say who they fought. I assume just the good guys.
Well, no, that's
a good
war.
question, Ted. That's the war. Yeah.
Well, there's the war spanning the whole empire, and then there's a single event that clearly leveled the city.
Yeah.
Right. We can see that by walking around upstairs.
Right.
Right. So. Can we attribute that to a particular battle with Priscus reliably from this book, or is that just, again, hyperbole is what I'm getting at?
It looks to be hyperbole. He basically attributes all like Arden Vul's complete destruction on Priscus Pulcher's wicked ways.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if the Swordians hadn't listened to Priscus Pulcher, everything would have been cool. But no, he had to go and fuck it up because he's evil. Yeah.
Amazing. Sorry, Matt. I should have been taking notes while you were tugging in your kid, but we didn't get a lot of that on writing, but we'll get it later. In memory, first, hortatory, I looked it up, means urging to some course of conduct or action, exhorting, encouraging. So it's definitely like a galvanizing text.
Okay, so that's important to know, because that's exactly what it's doing. It's warning
will you
readers.
repeat that sentence?
Yeah. So that, and it's important to know for you guys, warning readers to be on the alert for, quote, sons of evil who seek to emulate or venerate the evil Priscus. So it's basically saying, like, careful for, you know, any Swordians that may follow in his wake. Right.
Yeah, they're doing a little bit of a pogrom bait there. Okay, so that's important. To piggyback on Ted's, I don't have much to say, Ted, but to your point, right? We know objectively that the war would have happened. We certainly can surmise that there may have been a fight between Priscus and the gang. But to put on my tinfoil, as is my role, this could be a Bay of Tonkin situation, right? Like the actual explosion could have been not Priscus's fault, but some other sort of orthogonal thing or whatever that is being pinned on him because he is an apostate within sort of like the culture that is dominant here. John's not going to tell us that, but you know, the quote unquote facts are confirmed, aka damage was done, but we don't know the correlations per
Your assumption is basically correct. This just confirms. What you're reading is actually the source of all of the smear job against Priscus. Like, this is the work.
Yeah.
Like, as it said, like, it became widely popular, and you're looking at it right now. And you're right in that the line is that Priscus Pulcher was primarily responsible for the destruction of Arden Vul and for starting the war and for the mass scale destruction across the empire during the war, right? Or the Swordians under Priscus Pulcher. It's very similar to like the JFK assassination. It's like the given story, it's given that it's probably not, that's almost definitely not the truth, but the actual truth is still hidden. Now, you've seen clues, and these were early episodes about the nature of the destruction, how it's different on the west side than it is on the east side, that whole thing. And they are swaths like of mass destruction. It almost looks like in a single stroke. Right?
Exactly.
It doesn't look like warring armies or even like a conflagration of sorceries, which would have caused like scorching in some places and crumbling in other. You know what I mean? You know, it looks like a swath of wholesale destruction, just in two different varieties on either side of the.
Yeah, and it went like out. It was like like half was fire, right, going one way, and half was like force going the other way or something.
Exactly.
Tunguska, frankly, but here's the thing. There's that room we found at the very peak of the chasm on the debouchement level. That's the return with the fruits of Lord Priscus's wisdom before further explanation or exploration. And its position at the point of a chasm and suggests that, you know, I don't know, perhaps Lord Priscus really was a mighty sorcerer who could have engendered such a destructive thing as a, you know, his death curse or something. You've slain me, my spell will go off, kaboom, and levels the city. I mean,
and
I'm speculating.
No, of course, but like, yes, right. Like, if context collapse, well, not collapse, but context clues rather. If all of these are, as all written texts are propaganda, that's not a pejorative, right? All of these are persuasive texts in one way or another, however obvious they are in smearing or not, right? If we know that Priscus, like ideologically, was about spread the wealth, right? Like equal access. The idea that Priscus, in the failure of that achievement, would destroy all the people he was trying to liberate is a little sus. It's possible, but I don't know, right? Like I don't think he would do a predator bomb necessarily to kill everyone he was saying should have. Again, these are very limited bits of information.
All right, we'll flip it around. Maybe he didn't do the destruction, but he could still have been in that fight.
I think he was in the fight. What I'm saying is, do we know if he did the destruction, right? Like, or to put it a different way, like, I don't know. Who's the author of this?
Yang. Well, it's supposed to be Yang, but you don't know.
Yang. Yang Powell did not necessarily find yellow cake or uranium, but you know what I mean. Like you know what I mean. Like you know, the presentation's being made, but you know, the destruction is factual. We know everything's been deindustrialized. We don't know why, right? Like that's my point.
It's in this account too, so you know, take it with a grain of salt. But there is the indication that that it says that, you know, Yang, whoever that was, said that the evil Priscus was slain in this battle. So if that's true, it's, you know, you might think that maybe the tomb or the final resting place of Princess Pulcher may be somewhere underground.
Yeah.
Remember, the war was across the entire empire. Arden Vul is just one city. But the great Princess
Underground on the
Pulcher
surface, the whole
supposedly
town.
met his end here, according to this completely bullshit take. But
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? Yeah.
And speaking of bullshit, and the smear job that this particular book is, I'm curious, does it mention anywhere his eyes as a key feature? Like, we know that all the statues and everything, we know that there's something going on with his eyes, something going on with the gaze that he has and the way that he's looking. Is there any mention of that at all?
There is mention of his eyes, but it sort of wrapped up in the cartoony, villainish description of him. So it's, it would be like, a devil's eyes or black eyes or things like that. It's nothing that really correlates to anything that you've seen. Again, there's a marked difference between the physical description that is depicted here and all of the statuary that you've seen depicted in Arden Vul.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was some like exaggeration or, just if he's like shoots lasers out of his eyes or something and it's villainized here. But
I know what you mean.
Would that mean that there's a more benign interpretation of that?
No, they don't. He's a cartoon villain, but he's much more like on the cackling evil necromancer sort of. You know what I mean? That's the kind of way he's depicted. Like he's constantly like fucking around with corpses and like trying to like disrupt the secrets of the dead and all that kind of stuff, and just like a creepy dude that is just wholly removed from the light of Thoth and all that kind of stuff.
Seems totally normal to me. I might be biased, but I don't know. This guy seems like he's onto some good ideas. Matt, I don't know if you were driving it like the sapphire thing, like this motif of eyes, sapphire eyes, over and over and over again. I figured you were, right? I mean, it's a good question. Even if that isn't the case here, like it's something we need to be like, we've been talking about private, we need to be on the lookout for, no pun intended. Also, it didn't occur to me that there's any correlation here, but Lothar lost his eyes in a book, both of them. Was there any sapphire indication? If like
his eyes turned into sapphires?
I don't know. Like to put it differently, yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. To put it differently, I, in a real left field way, speculated that maybe the Ibis statues with sapphires might relate to our like CCTV thing. Doesn't matter. Not important here so much. But stealing your eyes for a book that's CCTV kind of connects to that theme. So again, saying it out loud in case it gets any juices flowing for y'all, but I like where Matt's head's at, which is that I'm going to be looking at eyes a lot more as a motif. I don't know, Ted. Does anything come to mind?
There was also there was also a very explicit clue to like follow the gaze of Priscus Pulcher. I can't remember who said that, but that was one of the things that we've picked up.
100%.
We'll see. We'll see.
What you're kind of picking up, and you're picking up on it well, is that the trail of breadcrumbs that you've picked up until this point appear to be much more reliable than this work, right? Which is the work that has been accepted by everybody. So, you know what I mean? Like you don't want to correlate anything that you find in this text, which is almost all bullshit, with anything that you've actually found. Like that's the real juice, right?
That's good to know.
Yeah, right. Like you can probably be confident, like
on it, right?
Like the sapphire thing. Like if you're thinking about experimenting with, because that's a good instinct about the Priscus Pulcher, faces and stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff that you would want to lean into. Is probably what was intended by the Sordians, at least. It
would be really interesting, Matt, if we go like full X-Files with this, if all of the extraterrestrials had blue eyes, we'll say, and the whether it's literal or not, right? Like the Ibis heads having blue eyes is one aspect of multiple cultures interpreting like that visage, right? Again, pure reach there, but I don't know. Interesting. I don't know.
Okay. So saving the last unknown text for last because it's the most complex or the most detailed, but this is the first history of the Order of Thoth in Arden Vul. All right. This was, interestingly enough, this was also written by the unknown Areopagite. It is a codex. It is big. It has brown leather binding. So this is a unique volume that records the experiences of the priesthood of Thoth at Arden Vul specifically. Unlike the founder and his deeds, which you also have a copy of, this codex de-emphasizes the role of Toristus and instead focuses on an array of junior administrators and their exciting discoveries beneath the cliff of Arden Vul. Discoveries attributable, of course, to Thoth, the Light of Comprehension. So much of this reads as a travelogue recounting the exploration of areas that would provide the core of the Thothian halls on levels redacted. So the text describes the discovery, but also the early building projects of the priesthood. And a careful reader, which is you, would be able to intuit the general location of certain areas, which I'm going to go into in a bit. The text also describes the Thothians' first encounters with those they call the survivors, strange beings stranded on Magay after the crash of their boat, the Beacon.
There it is.
Particular mention is made of Salaricus and Isocrates. Reading these sections of the Codex imparts the following useful information. 1. The beacon was a vessel or boat of some sort. 2. The ancient ones are really old and the last remnant of their race. 3. A terrible cataclysm wiped out the ancient ones' culture, which still holds secrets locked behind the obsidian gates. And 4. A basic knowledge of some Rudishva words and glyphs. There's like a chance to do it, but you already have like a text that actually supersedes that. But if you had only found this would have been like a good key to unlocking some, like a good chance to discover glyphs. All right. Now, a lot to take in right there. First of all, is I want to point out that the founder in his deeds was all about Toristus and was much more like on a mythic sort of scale, with Toristus as like the traveling cleric, devout priest of Thoth with Arden Vul. But this one is very much like not a layman, because they're not, but like again, the functionaries of the temple and the priesthood as they went about their actual business of setting up the Thothian precincts during the colonization by the empire, right, in Arden Vul. So you get very clear descriptions of their attempts to build these places out, okay? And you recognize some of these places. First of all, the ones that you recognize are the mysteries of Thoth, those 3 strange rooms that are just south of the debouche, one of which you're using as your stash, right? So there's the fountain.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. So there's that. There is a description of the crypts, which are northwest of the debouchement, right? So that's where they interred the vast majority of the functionary members of the priesthood. You now know that place to be riddled with undead, right? That's the rumor, right? Because prior to entering it, that's where you pick up your Ma'at feather, right? There is mention of the great chasm to the east of the priesthood. So that means that the great chasm predates Arcantian settlement. At least part of it. There is mention of that room that was bisected by the chasm that had the 3rd Thoth statue, right? Mm-hmm. There's mention of that. The tomb of Toristus is actually mentioned very clearly. It doesn't tell you how to get past the traps, but it does give you location. Would have been very cool but you've already found it because you're cool. There is a mention of the Temple of Thoth to the west of the debouche, which you now know to be desecrated by the Setites. That is the primary place of actual worship of Thoth, right? By high and low, right? That just be aware. Interestingly, the Great Hall and the chambers abutting it, you are able to correlate as the Beastman compound, right? And the Great Hall, you obviously know. Those were the administrative chambers of these people that were writing these works, that were creating these works. So everything in the Beastman compound was repurposed by Dano and the Beastmen, but those were like the administrative chambers. There is a description of the fungal caverns that are just south of those administrative chambers, right? It gives you a general scope of the size of those caverns. Isn't that nice? So let me take a look here real quick.
You can just fill that out on the map for us if you like there, John.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just a description, but it does give a general indication that, give me 1 second. That it's more or less about 300 to 350 feet north to south. Okay, very large. And it's described as being that there are two parts to it. There's a northern section of the caverns riddled with fungi, and then the southern section, and that is divided by a large lake with an island in the center. Okay,
which we've heard of before.
And the southern portion, there is mention of an elevated parvis, and that the description of it sounds very similar to what you read about the final resting place of Lord Tarmus upon a high promontory in the fungal caverns.
Oh, you know we're going there. You know we're going there.
Loot the heck out of it.
Then your eyes really light up because of the tail end of that section. The first priests of Thoth in Arden Vul mentioned that they were able to dig out. They were able to find a small section of interconnected natural tunnels just south of the fungal caverns, and were able to break through to create a back door, as they call it, in quotes.
Yes.
All right. Then there is a description of just south of just going down a set of stairs from the debouche. There is a description of an immense cave with a waterfall and a river flowing through it. Going down those stairs from the debouchement, and leading out from that cave is a place known as the Hall of 40 Pillars. Okay, you've also heard of this as well, just in general, because it's like one of the iconic locations of the halls. So interestingly enough, though, is that the Hall of 40 Pillars, it's written as by these guys as having been discovered by them. All right, like they were pre-existing.
Nice.
There is indications that they thought that the Hall of 40 Pillars was built by what they call the Hoppers, but it goes laser straight to the impenetrable obsidian gates.
Ooh.
All right. So that is that.
John, I want to cross-reference something if I can. We had gathered some in the officers' quarter. I brought it up a couple times. There were notes and map pieces of stuff of the fungal caverns on one of the desks there. Mm-hmm. We scooped them up and we brought them with us. Does that information add on to this, supplement this in any way, or is it kind of duplicative of what we're learning here?
Yeah, it's probably duplicative, I would say. I mean, nothing is going to give you like a perfect map. I would say that, I guess like those maps would probably confirm that there is two large sections with a lake in the middle. In addition, that there is indications of the paths that lead to what appear to be a dock on the northern side of the lake. All right. That was recently constructed, you assume, by the Beastmen. All right. And then apparently that it goes to another dock on the southern end. Right. So you're going to have to see for yourself or ask around or whatever about the possibilities of how to cross that lake, right?
John, one clarification question. You said 300 to 350 feet north to south. Did you mean feet? Because that's like a football field. Did you mean yards? Is it feet? Because that's actually small compared to what we
checks out though with the size of the maps.
It does. Okay,
I think so.
Yeah, it's feet.
It's not like a mile. Okay. So we've got a football field. A football field's what, 360? I don't know.
300 yards.
300 feet.
Rather.
For about 6 or 7 months for us to get through. Got it.
The instructions we got from the LRCP tour guide that we went to the cage said take the path south, stay to the path for safety. At the cliff, there's a hook for rappelling down the cliff. At the base, keep going south to the dock. Skiff on the underground lake to the other side. Beware the center island, piles of skeletons. In the southern caverns, very wild, strange Arcantian ruins. Follow the path to the cliff face.
Okay.
Nice.
So this
Just
is
to
all
clarify,
technique.
just to clarify, Ted, a football field is 120 yards, so it's 360 feet. So it's basically
Including the end
exactly.
zone, you mean?
I mean, that's what 10 more.
Yeah, it's the end zone.
The yardage on a football field is 120 yards. Yeah. So just for scale, it's the north to south on this is basically a football field. So just so we know. Yeah. So it's
Okay.
not like it's no. I mean, whether it's open or not, I don't know. But just in terms of our speed and scope, that's good to know.
I wouldn't want to cross the football field covered in hostile mushrooms. Let's say that.
No. I mean, there's.
No, it's because I gave the indication off screen that it would be like a whole adventure. It's it gave an impression that it was larger scope than it probably is. Although I'm looking at the complete map here of level 3, and it's huge combined to like everything else. And it's also, except for the lake, and according to the maps that Wolford picked up, are packed with mushrooms of every variety, right? And mostly trackless. That's a huge part of it as well, right?
100%. But the reason I brought it up at all, right? We know there's a lake in the middle of an island, etc. Is if it is, instead of being serpentine, if it's an open zone, we won't know until we're there. Flying from one side to the other over the fungal forest is a method of movement.
Very possible, yeah.
Because we can fly now, right? It's just so we're thinking about it in those terms, like, if it's an open space.
And that's the other thing too. You want to, I guess, if you would think about like real world caves and stuff like that. Like if you picture one large open space that is the size of a football field underground, that's like almost unheard of, right? That's just absolutely massive.
It's pretty big, yeah.
Yeah. So it should be pretty mind blowing when you actually lay eyes on it.
Yes,
for real.
Yes.
I wonder, John, in any of these things that we found or read, because the beastmen can't see in the dark, was there any mention of like the glowing mushrooms? I think we've even seen glowing
you saw,
mushrooms before.
You are. I'm going when you actually enter the fungal caverns. Whenever you do, I'm going to give you a better description of what you saw. I underplayed it. It was my own fault. I just didn't read it thoroughly enough. Whenever you were given the tour, so that initial view that you saw from the cage, I'm going to redo whenever you enter again to give you a broader picture. But yes, there is quite a bit of ambient luminescence in the fungal caverns, plus a lot more to kind of take in the very first time. So, yeah.
I have ideas. I can't wait.
Okay, so I don't know how you guys are doing for time. We can go through the labors if you like, or we can just save them.
We have done them before, haven't we?
We've never read them out loud. You have access to them?
I would love to go over them again, but I also would love a quick break.
You want to do a break and we'll top it off with the 12 labors when we come back?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let me get my controls here. Okay. All right. We will take a quick break and we will be right back. Okay, we are back. Bladder's empty, beer's full. We're going to top off this Tack-on FX with some major story time. These are the 12 labors of Arden. I can't remember where you picked up the volume originally, but you've had it for a long time.
From the Hall of Labors.
Oh, okay. Great. That makes sense. So,
right?
The good thing is that this won't take that long because it's not like it's the way that Rick has actually written it here. It's like summations of what the stories are instead of like the actual full stories, right?
Right.
So,
wait.
Yes.
I got stuck with a question right before we start this. In the last book that we were talking about, with the first history of the Order of Thoth in Arden Vul, was the area with the pneuma mentioned?
No.
At all? Remember the area?
No, it was not. Yeah.
But the green gas, of course, the three mysteries of Thoth are mentioned.
Yes,
Did it describe the gas?
It does, yeah. So it did describe those. So that's a really good thing to point out, Matt, because what was significantly left out is first of all of Plunger Town, not mentioned.
Right.
So but was mentioned is, and when you look at who wrote this text, is all of what looks to be like the functional aspects of the priesthood of Thoth, right? Like where the daily business of the priesthood took place,
Right.
is what has been described here. And so you can probably safely assume that any place that you have explored that has been associated with Thoth that was not in this text was relegated to certain higher echelons of the priesthood, or certain other people or sects of the priesthood. And if you think about the places that you've been in Plunger Town specifically, that really lines up, right? Like for instance, like the Litany of Light, the stations, right? That was obviously something like only like you're not going to have your average priest be able to suddenly get true seeing. You know what I mean? Like the Litany of Light was a guarded, protected thing that only certain high priests of Thoth were able to access, right? And knew the secrets, knew the secret names of Thoth to intone, right? In those places. So,
and we've still not heard any mention of conversation with the gods or conversation with a beacon or anything that would like allude to the god phone, right, gang?
No.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So something to keep an eye out on.
Remember, the God phone was also accessed via Plunger Town, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just keep that in mind. The library and the secret library are both in Plunger Town. You know, again, I can't think of the word, but discrete access. You know. Anyways,
they really should have named it something with more gravitas.
I know, why Plunger? I didn't know that was Latin, you know.
For anyone who hasn't been following us that long, Plunger Town is not. Yeah. Okay, moving on to the secular, the realm of the Archontians. We're talking about the 12 labors of Arden. So this is a favored story. Who knows how much of it is true? But this is what has made the legend of Arden specifically. Although it features many of her companions, including Vul as well. So, interesting. The first one is a doozy because it may remind you of something. First labor is called the Owlbears of Mount Juventus with a J. In a series of volcanic passages on the dormant volcano Mount Juventus, which is on Mithruin, which is an island that I can't remember now, but anyways, it's out in the ocean. A pack of owlbears began threatening Imperial Goblin miners. Arden was sent with a small unit to investigate. Although her comrades were slain, she triumphed by killing all the owlbears. Interestingly enough, when you entered the Hall of Labors and you found that dead Azure Knight had Oculos, and you took Oculos and you bonded with it, and it relived the last moments of that night, it sure seemed to line up with the events of the first labor of Arden. In fact, don't forget that what you found around Lyda's neck was an owl bear feather. Right? Okay. Second labor. It's called the Troll of Pelusia. Plousia. A band of trolls was menacing settlements near Arcturus. That's where Avaricios hailed from, generally. The band was led by a specimen of unusual size and intelligence. Playing on the troll's greed and confidence, Arden agreed to a bargain. They would fight a duel. If Arden lost and lived, she would serve the trolls for a decade. If Arden lost and was killed, they would eat her. If she could dismember the chieftain, the band would depart for greener pastures. Arden won, and the trolls left. Pretty simple.
Deal's a deal.
The third labor is called the Laughing Lord of the Grain Islands. A troop of ogre magi appeared in the Grain Islands. So the Grain Islands are an archipelago near the homeland of Archontos, like where the home city is out in the ocean, and it's also where the halflings generally tend to dwell, who are citizens of the empire. A troop of ogre magi appeared in the Grain Islands, setting themselves up as rural lords in a beautiful manor house. From this fortress, they enslaved the local halfling farmers and disrupted food shipments to Mithruin. Oh, so Mithruin is the island where Archontos lies. After an inconclusive fight with the charmed servants of the ogre magi, Arden brazenly invited herself to dinner with a laughing lord. At dinner, she pretended to drink too much wine, while the laughing lord did drink too much wine. Arden told the lord of a great treasure she held in a special metal box. When the laughing lord looked into it, she pushed him in and sealed it with wax. The other ogre magi fled, and Arden tossed the sealed box into the ocean. She's dope. The fourth labor is called the Three Berserkers of Westholm. The emperor sent an envoy to Westholm and Borealios to negotiate tribute from local Wiscan chieftains. While visiting the hall of Odd Scalison, a local jarl, the envoy was slain and crucified. Arden and Vul arrived to seek vengeance without provoking a war. She entered the hall and engaged the men of Jarl Odd in a series of tests: a drinking bout on one day, a strength feat on the next, a running race on the third. On the fourth day, a trio of Wiscan berserkers arrived, as if by chance, and after a few ales insulted Arden and sought her death. She killed them all, and Odd submitted, sending his bear claw necklace to the emperor in tribute. Fifth labor.
Wait, didn't we see a bear claw necklace down in the Halls of Arden? No, not with Arden. There was that little room with the pool.
Oh,
there was
yeah.
stuff on a shelf
where she kept her thong.
The fifth labor, the greedy Jarl. While in Borealios to accomplish the fourth labor, Arden was visited by other Wiscan chieftains who complained about a family of frost giants that was claiming lordship over a neighboring valley. The giants were capturing and eating those who refused to submit. Arden and Vul journeyed to the Jarl's hall, stormed it, and decapitated the Jarl. Yeah, David.
Sorry to rewind. The Lyda's necklace had both an owlbear feather and a claw on it. Was that an owlbear claw?
It was an owlbear claw.
Or was that a separate thing? Okay, good.
Yeah,
right.
Claw,
but in one of the rooms on the table were the relics of the labors: the necklace of bear claws, shells of a triton, circle of a sardonyx, intaglio of a heron, etc., etc.
Okay,
We have seen.
Keep that note open, Ted.
Okay.
The sixth labor, the Lost Legion. The fifth cataphracti rode out to investigate reports of unrest. Riding through a canyon on Irthuin, they were met at its mouth by a Thorkin Thane, Hadric Lawfinder. Hadric consulted with the polemarch for a few moments before stabbing him to death. The rest of the column was ambushed from above, and 90% of the legion slaughtered. Hadric took the Flamulan as his trophy. I think, is that a flag, a battle flag? A Flamulan? I think it is.
Not a flag, I think, but a standard.
A standard, yeah. Okay, so Hadric took the Flamulan as his trophy. Arden and Vul were sent to scout the scene before more troops were sent. The pair investigated many Thorkin villages until they tracked down Hadric at a longhouse built deep in the woods next to a shrine to Fenth. There they slew Hadric and some priests of Fenth and recovered the Flamulan. The heroes were aided by one of the surviving members of the fifth cataphracti, the Tulwar-wielding Lucius Minix. The seventh labor is the river god. Vul discovered a magically active area atop and within an enormous cliff from which poured a violent waterfall, the future site of Arden Vul. Arden and Vul scaled the cliff and investigated the site. Vul attempted to construct a tower by the river, but the river kept shifting location and destroying his work. The pair determined that a water elemental inhabited the lower reaches of the river. They banished it and seized the enchanted giant triton shell that had kept it imprisoned in this location. Might be relevant. The eighth labor is the hidden priest. A village headman registered a complaint with the local Chartularios, claiming that the local priest of Osiris was an imposter. He also complained that exactions from all the local temples had skyrocketed and without explanation. Imperial investigators found nothing amiss, and the regional council of priests found the new exactions and tithes to be appropriate. The headman turned up dead a month later. His daughter sought out Arden, who arrived with Vul to investigate. Vul journeyed to the temple of Osiris, where he observed a suspiciously high level of tithe collection. He also discovered many messengers traveling to the temple of Isis. Arden adopted the guise of a pilgrim and spent a fortnight begging for Isis. Eventually, the pair discovered that a powerful priestess of Yale was impersonating the priestess of Isis, and that her minions had also replaced the priests of the other local temples. Arden located the hidden shrine to Yale and destroyed it, thus ending the illusion and permitting a return to proper religious harmony. Arden presented the half-moon torque of the priestess of Yale to the Chartularios. Ninth
Never trust an Ivy Leaguer.
I was going to say, is this how Yale's endowment got so big?
Yale, I should say. It might be Jael. It's Jael.
Oh, okay.
The ninth labor is singing the dead to sleep. This one you heard recently, I believe. At the new settlement of Magnus Auger, the dead refused to remain in their graves and crypts. Citizens reported eerie music in the night with reports of walking dead terrorizing and even attacking the living. Arden and Vul arrived with their comrade Ristus, a cleric of Thoth. Despite their efforts, which involved re-killing a number of undead, the problem didn't end. Finally, Arden realized that the music was controlling the dead. The trio tracked the music to the crypt of a Thorkin Skop. The trio defeated the Skop after Arden was able to challenge him to a musical duel. Once placated, the Skop retired and the hauntings ceased. The 10th labor, the fallen mage. Apollonius of Arkantos, the primus magus of the Order of Thoth, devised a necromantic ritual to preserve himself as a lich. Upon reading this, Upio's ears perk up. He filled his townhouse in Arkantos with traps, slew his servants and apprentices, and raised them as undead, and prepared to spend millennia seeking information and power. The particular process for becoming a lich that he pioneered, however, required that he spend 50% of his time in hibernation. He was woken periodically by the activation of certain talismans that his undead servants preserved. A century after disappearing into lichdom in his own demiplane, Apollonius began appearing in the capital city, taking valuable tomes and magical artifacts, striking down even the most powerful nobles if they tried to resist. The emperor could not tolerate this blatant thievery, especially from one of the empire's greatest archmages. Arden and Vul were tasked with putting the theft and violence to a halt. The heroes visited Apollonius' townhouse, cleared it of minions, and journeyed to his demiplane. There they confronted Apollonius. After defeating various traps and minions, Apollonius negotiated with the heroes, promising to cease his predations in Arkantos in return for being left alone. He provided a talisman with his sigil, a heron eating a fish, to seal the bargain. Arden and Vul presented the talismans to the emperor. The 11th labor, the dragon's egg. Seeing the new settlement at Arden Vul as a threat, an ancient red dragon and its partner began to attack the Arkantian settlers there. Since the dragons were breaking the compact of Aeneas, Arden and Vul were sent to handle the situation. They located the dragon's lair atop a crag in the mountains west of Arden Vul. After several skirmishes involving magic, fire, and physical combat, the pair decided to force the dragons into compliance by stealing their eggs through stealth. An invisible Arden scaled the heights and stole 3 eggs. Vul then dictated terms to the dragons. They would cease attacking Arkantian settlements, or their offspring would be slain. If the parents agreed, the offspring would be raised within the empire and according to the compact of Aeneas. When the parents agreed, Arden and Vul brought 2 of the eggs to the emperor in Arkantos. The 3rd egg disappeared.
Gross.
The 12th labor is unknown. At the height of her fame, Arden disappeared along with her partner Vul. Imperial legend has it that she sleeps across the centuries in preparation for her 12th and final labor. When the empire needs them both, Arden and Vul will awaken to complete their final task. As a result, there is no fixed interpretation of the 12th labor, with most accounts simply leaving it empty. There you go. Those are the 12 labors of Arden.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, very cool.
I love it. Busy.
Yeah, so any potential customers of Arden Vul out there, that's just a slice of the breadth of creativity that Rick Barton put into this work. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
We've slain some undead. We fought a lich. We've defeated various monsters. We're kind of right up there with Arden and Vul, I'm thinking. Here
they had a lot of cool adventures, and so have you, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But speaking of, what happened, like it's fairly obvious that night, because as it just tracked, as Oculus sort of tracked its possession by the night, that night definitely went through that first labor in some way, shape, or form, right? And it appeared in that pool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's Oculus's biggest value right now. It's
a very old sword.
It's a very old sword that I wonder if there's a way to
download it.
Yeah, just provoke more information from it. Maybe I'll be taking that back out of the stash and poking a beehive, but after the fungal caverns probably. But that is Fascinating.
So the audience can't see it, but if you zoom out, do you guys have Miro open?
I do.
No, but I will look.
It's not a big deal, but just so
easy
you're
to
aware,
do.
like to the right of the map section, I've actually posted the 12 labors, exactly what I just read to you. So there's a
I
hard
was
copy
reading
reference. There's a hard copy reference for you. Sorry, audience, you don't get to see, but if you zoom in to my PDF that's open, you could probably get a good gander. But again, totally
Or you buy
worth
the
that.
Arden Vul.
Yeah, exactly.
There's also a very lurid illustration relating to Ted's earlier commentary that you can find if you have access to the mirror. But unfortunately, you can't. So
Lurid illustrations.
A lot of disgusting stuff on this mirror.
I don't know.
But yeah, so that's the deal. And don't forget too, the biggest discovery of all in the Secret Library was, of course, those snippets that gave you hints as to the location of the remaining regalia. Right, one of which was the Tablet of the Beacon. So don't forget all that stuff too. You got the Bone Ring of Yagranaz, Tablet of the Beacon, the Ebon Spear, and you already have the Iron Circlet of Gonor.
Should we go through? Nah, it's fine. Yeah.
It cost you a faction, but you have the Iron Circlet of Gonor.
Hey, what's never mind. I won't. But yeah.
Trick is that the next faction it costs us. We need to figure out how to make that be the Setites. You see, that's what we got to do.
People you don't like versus the people you do like, right? Yeah, exactly. All right, okay. I think that'll do it, right? So that is. I think we've fully went through the library of the AV Club up to this point. And so we'll let it build up a little bit more, and we'll do another one whenever you discover some more books. Anyways, thanks for joining me, guys, as I kind of went through this. Sorry it was so much expposition, but this is
no, it was amazing.
This is Tack-on FX for you. So I think it's
always a pleasure.
Tack-on FX for the win.
You got it. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching and or listening. You've been watching and or listening to 3D6 Down the Line, the most criminally underwatched actual play series on the internet. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon to get all notifications when we publish new material, including the ever sporadic Tack-on FX. Join our Patreon for extra bennies. It really helps support us and what we do. And check out our publication, Feats of Exploration. And thank you always to all of our patrons. The names only get read during regular episodes, though. but we love you all. We love you all, especially the Mats. You're our favorites. The Mats are the best. And that one.
Listen, I need to get a David on my team out here.
You have a Dave. You have Dave Rosser Jr.
Oh, I do have. Hey, baby, we're gonna get an alliance.
Let's see if I can recall it from memory. There's Dave Rosser Jr., Ted Gast, and there's Matt Young, Matt Schilling,
it's Michael Schilling, I think.
Is it Michael Schilling? Well, there's a Mike. Okay,
Michael Schilling.
Yeah, but
Matt
anyways,
Mason, Matt Gardner, Matt Koenig, Matt Young.
Everyone's represented except for a John, which would be really nice. So.
It's an overplayed name, if you ask me.
It is pretty common.
And the only one.
But anyways, thank you as always to all of our patrons. We really do appreciate the support. And we will see you next time, everybody. Take care. Bye.
See you. Thanks, John.